Imagine sitting down at a Windows computer, right? You hit the Command and C keys at the exact same time.
Oh yeah, the classic Mac copy shortcut.
Exactly. If you're a Mac user, your brain is just, well, it's completely wired to expect that action to copy a piece of text. It's this automatic, deeply ingrained habit. But you're on a Windows machine, so nothing happens.
Or, it triggers some bizarre error code.
Right. You executed the command perfectly, but the underlying coding architecture of the machine you're using just fundamentally misinterprets the input.
Yeah.
And that friction, that invisible clash of operating systems, is honestly exactly what happens inside the human brain when attempting to speak the English language.
Yeah, the cognitive load required to speak a second language is just staggering. Our neural pathways, they naturally default to the path of least resistance, which is, of course, the structural rules of our mother tongue.
Welcome to today's deep dive. We're so glad you're here with us. Today, we're looking at a targeted document compiling 10 of the most common English language mistakes and exactly how to fix them.
But what this document really provides is a fascinating psychological diagnostic report. These errors aren't just random slips of the tongue.
No, they're incredibly consistent.
They really are. They are predictable operating system overrides.
We are basically looking at a literal map of where the bilingual brain stumbles over English's invisible architecture. And the mission of this deep dive isn't just to act as an audio textbook, reading out grammar rules for you to memorize.
Right. We want to uncover the actual why behind these common stumbling blocks. Because by understanding why these mistakes happen, you can shortcut your way to sounding more natural and confident.
Okay, let's unpack this. We have to begin at the root cause of many language errors, which is the trap of direct translation.
Yes, treating English as a direct word-for-word code for a native language. The document highlights mistake number 1 right away, which is using gender pronouns incorrectly.
Like saying, he is my sister instead of she is my sister.
Precisely. And to a native English speaker, hearing that immediately halts the conversation because the mental math just doesn't compute. But if we look at the linguistics, it makes perfect sense.
Because other languages handle it completely differently, right?
Exactly. Many languages, like Turkish, Finnish, or even spoken Mandarin, use entirely gender-neutral pronouns. Other languages assign gender based on the object being possessed, rather than the subject who is acting.
So when a learner says, he is my sister, it's completely unrelated to a lack of vocabulary. Their brain's native framework just doesn't require them to categorize the subject's biological gender in real time, right before constructing the rest of the sentence.
English forces an immediate upfront categorization that their brain just isn't used to rendering.
It's sort of like trying to play a piano using sheet music written for a drum kit.
Oh, I like that.
The notes just don't map over one-to-one, which is why translating literally leads to these mismatched sentences.
That's a great analogy. And the source advises learners to vigorously double-check gender pronouns, but the deeper strategy is to learn English phrases as whole chunks rather than translating word by word.
Which brings us to mistake number 8, directly translating age,
Yeah.
like saying, I have 20 years, instead of, I am 20 years old.
This is a massive one, because in many Romance languages like Spanish, French, Italian, age is treated as a tangible possession.
You accumulate years, you hold them, you literally have them.
Yes, but English treats age as an intrinsic state of being. You do not possess your age, you are your age. It's a fundamental ontological difference.
So when you say, I have 20 years, you're running that Mac shortcut on the Windows machine again. The words are English, but the philosophical code is Romance.
Which is exactly why learning in chunks is critical. If you learn I am 20 years old as a single unbreakable chunk, your brain bypasses that translation software entirely.
You aren't translating, you're just deploying a complete English thought. But since English doesn't map directly from other languages, it has its own invisible structural rules.
Right. Once we stop translating directly, we have to start paying attention to these tiny structural details that hold English sentences together. We're moving into the invisible architecture of verbs and plurals.
Let's look at mistake number 2. Forgetting the S or ES in the present simple tense for third-person singular, saying she go to school instead of she goes.
Yeah.
It's just one tiny letter. Why is the human brain so eager to drop it?
Well, because in modern English, that S carries very little semantic weight. It doesn't actually change the core meaning of the action. If I say she go, you still understand the action is going.
Right.
Historically, Old English had a highly complex system of verb conjugations, but over centuries, English stripped almost all of those endings away to streamline communication.
Leaving this single vestigial S for he, she, and it.
Exactly. And because it feels semantically useless to a learner's brain, it gets immediately dropped when processing speed increases during a real-time conversation.
But the source flags it as a critical error because, structurally, it acts like a linguistic metronome for a native speaker. When that S goes missing, it disrupts the rhythm. The listener's brain actually stumbles.
And speaking of structural disruption, the document highlights an even more physically demanding rule, mistake number 4, which is wrong word order in questions.
Like asking, "You are coming," with an upward inflection instead of, "Are you coming?"
In many languages across the globe, turning a statement into a question is simply a matter of vocal pitch. You take the declarative statement, raise your tone at the end, and the listener knows it's a question.
The cognitive load is virtually zero. You don't have to change the words at all.
But English demands what linguists call syntactic inversion. You actually have to put the verb before the subject.
So you all must become "are you." You literally have to dismantle the sentence, rearrange the pieces in your working memory, and then speak them out loud.
The source notes that forming questions requires active practice, and this is why. It's a mechanical gymnastic exercise for the brain's language center.
Okay, I have to playfully push back on one of the rules the source brings up here. On behalf of the listener, it's mistake number 9. The document insists that we must say, "People are friendly here," and that saying "people is friendly" is a mistake.
Ah, yes. The pluralization of collective nouns.
Wait, but look at it visually. A crowd of people sounds like a single group or a single crowd. We say the team is winning or the family is eating. We treat those groups as singular. So why doesn't people take the word "is"?
What's fascinating here is the underlying etymology and how English categorizes mass versus count nouns. While it represents a group, people is fundamentally a plural noun in English.
Really? Because it traces back to different roots.
Partially, yes. The word traces back to Latin, which treated it as a singular body. But as it filtered into English, the Germanic syntactic rules took over. So in English, people represents multiple individuals, not a monolithic block. It always takes R.
So the structural rule of the language actually overrides the visual reality. Even if my eyes see one single crowd in a room, the English grammar engine processes it as 50 distinct humans, forcing me to use R.
English is incredibly rigid in this regard. The source warns against treating people like team or government. It is inherently plural, and the architecture just will not compromise.
Okay, so we fixed the basic sentence, architecture, verbs, in question order. Now we move to the trickiest finishing touches, which is navigating time and space.
Yes, how English demands absolute precision when talking about time and duration. The source highlights mistake number 6, which is confusing since in 4.
Like saying, "I live here since 5 years," when the correct structure is, "I've lived here for 5 years."
To understand why this happens, we have to look at the rules. For measures duration, 5 years is a quantity, a volume of time, so you use 4 to encapsulate that duration.
While since requires a specific starting point, right?
Exactly. Since acts as a pinpoint on a timeline, like since 2020. You cannot use since then, with a volume of time. And the source needs that this also requires the specific tense.
The present perfect tense, "I have lived," not "I live."
Because the present perfect tense acts as a grammatical bridge. It tells the listener that an action started at that pinpoint in the past and is still happening right now.
Saying, "I live here since 5 years," breaks both the measurement rule and the tense rule at the exact same time.
It really does.
It's like pouring water into a ruler instead of a measuring cup. The tools are just totally mismatched. And if that wasn't tricky enough, the source throws us into mistake number 7, the incorrect use of "in," "on," and "at."
Oh, this is a tough one. Saying I will see you on Monday instead of on Monday. Many languages use a single all-purpose preposition for time, so choosing between 3 invisible categories feels like a total guessing game.
The source gives a quick guide for this. "In" for broad things like months and years, "on" for days, and "at" for exact times. But visualizing that can be tough. I actually like to picture the "in," "on," and "at" rule as a funnel.
A funnel. Okay, I can see that.
Right. So "in" is the wide opening at the very top of the funnel. You are capturing a massive, sprawling landscape of time, whole years, entire months. In 2026, the borders are wide.
Then you move further down the funnel.
Exactly, to the narrower middle section. This is "on." You are no longer looking at an entire year. You are focused on a single specific day, on Monday, on the 4th of July.
And finally, you reach the very bottom.
Yeah, the tiny precise spout at the very bottom of the funnel. This is at exact hours. At 5 p.m., wide opening, "in" for years, narrow middle "on" for days, and precise spout "at" for exact hours.
Visualizing that funnel concept really clarifies the preposition problem. Mastering this logic is what separates someone who is merely understood from a speaker who really commands the language.
Which brings us to the final section of our deep dive, elevating the language. We are shifting from merely speaking correct English to speaking advanced, natural-sounding English by upgrading our vocabulary choices.
The document targets three specific linguistic habits here. The first is mistake number 3, mixing up do and make.
For instance, saying, I did a mistake, instead of I made a mistake.
This is notoriously difficult, because in languages like Italian or Spanish, a single verb covers both concepts. But English forces a philosophical divide between creation and execution.
So, use make for creating or producing something, and do for actions or tasks.
Exactly. The verb make represents bringing something into existence. When you make a mistake, you have actively created an error. You manufactured it.
But the verb do doesn't create anything. Do represents the execution of a process. You do the laundry, you do your homework.
You are performing an action, not birthing a new object into reality. It's a subtle but profound distinction. The next habit the source targets is mistake number 5, overusing the word very.
Very big, very small, very good. Native speakers do this just as much as learners, honestly.
Oh, absolutely. We use very as a processing buffer. When we're speaking quickly and our brain needs an extra millisecond to retrieve a better adjective, we stall by saying very.
It's a total linguistic placeholder. But the source points out that relying on it heavily just reduces the impact of your statements.
It forces the listener to process 2 weak words instead of 1 strong one. The fix is to upgrade the vocabulary. Instead of very big, use huge. Instead of very small, use tiny.
You're swapping out a two-piece puzzle for a single, vivid block of meaning. Excellent paints a much sharper image than very good. And the final mistake on our list, mistake number 10, follows this exact same pattern.
Overusing the phrase I think.
We constantly pad our sentences with I think to soften our statements, right? It's like a subconscious mechanism to reduce social friction.
It is. If you say, I think this is the right strategy, you leave a back door open in case you're wrong.
It lowers the stakes. But the source gives us a critical fix for this, which is intentional variety. If you want to sound advanced, swap in phrases like, in my opinion, I believe, or it seems that.
The source notes that the simple substitution drastically improves your speaking quality. It signals you have a deep reservoir of language, rather than clinging to a single repetitive lifeline.
So what does this all mean? If we summarize this for you, it means sounding fluent isn't just about grammar. It's about ditching filler words for more precise, confident language.
It is the ultimate polish on the invisible architecture you've constructed.
It really is a fascinating journey. Let's briefly recap the roadmap for you. We moved away from the trap of direct translation, learning to use whole chunks and check our gender pronouns.
We mastered the invisible structural rules, recognizing that vital S in verbs and the gymnastics of inverting word order for questions.
We recognized that people is always a plural crowd. Then we navigated the funnel of time prepositions, using for duration and since for pinpoints.
And sliding down the funnel from the broad in to the narrower on, down to the precise at.
Finally, we polished our vocabulary to sound natural, distinguishing the creation of make from the action of do and ditching our filler words.
It's a comprehensive masterclass, hidden in a simple list of mistakes.
And as we close out this deep dive, there's a final provocative thought to leave you with, something that wasn't explicitly discussed in the sources, but stems directly from them.
Let's hear it.
Given how much English relies on specific language chunks, precise vocabulary, and these weird structural inversions, it raises a larger question. How much of mastering English is actually about memorizing words, and how much of it is about stepping out of your own native language entirely?
Wow. Adopting the unique way English thinks about the world.
Exactly. Because until you let go of the way your mother tongue categorizes the universe, you'll always be hitting that Mac shortcut on a Windows machine, wondering why the code isn't working.
You aren't just learning a language, you are learning a new way to process existence.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep zooming in with those temporal funnels, keep practicing, and until next time, keep exploring.